Dopamine is firing inside your brain right now. Not because this video is pleasurable, but because your neurons are making a prediction about whether the next sentence is worth hearing. That distinction, prediction not pleasure, is the single most misunderstood fact in the entire dopamine detox movement, and it changes everything. Millions of people have spent the last few years avoiding their phones, sitting in dark rooms, staring at walls, believing they were draining dopamine from their brains like emptying a bathtub. Harvard Health Publishing published a direct correction. Dopamine fasting does not actually lower dopamine levels or involve true fasting. So the whole thing is nonsense. Except, it's not. Because some of those people reported genuine changes in motivation, focus, and emotional clarity afterward. Something was shifting inside their neural circuitry, but it wasn't what they thought. The real mechanism, the one no influencer explains, involves a region of your brain you've never heard of, recalculating whether boring tasks are worth your effort, and that mechanism is far more powerful and far more fragile than anyone realizes. Your brain runs two separate dopamine systems, not one, two.
The first is the mesolimbic pathway, a deep circuit connecting in structure called the ventral tegmental area to the nucleus accumbens, a small cluster of neurons sitting right behind your forehead. This is the wanting circuit. Not pleasure, wanting. It fires when your brain predicts a reward is coming. The distinction matters because neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz demonstrated decades ago that dopamine neurons don't fire when you receive the reward, they fire before. They fire at the cue, the notification sound, the red badge on the app icon, the first frame of a new video loading. Schultz called this the reward prediction error. When reality exceeds your brain's prediction, dopamine surges. When reality matches the prediction, dopamine stays flat.
When reality disappoints, when you open the app and the content is boring, dopamine drops below baseline. Below, your brain punishes you neurochemically for a bad prediction. The second system is the mesocortical pathway, running from that same deep brain structure up into your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning, impulse control, and deciding whether a difficult task is worth starting. This pathway doesn't chase pleasure, it regulates effort. And here's where the popular dopamine detox story fractures. The scientist published a piece quoting researchers Borglund and Lerner directly. The brain is not rewired by dopamine's absence. That statement seems like it kills the entire dopamine detox argument. But follow the logic one step further. Northwestern University published a study in Current Biology showing that dopamine signals in different brain regions evolve over time to support learning from aversive experiences, including boredom. Dopamine doesn't just teach you what to chase, it teaches you what to endure. And when you flood the wanting circuit with high-intensity stimulation 16 hours a day, the learning signal for endurance gets buried. But there's a problem with the receptor story everyone tells. The specific mechanism people claim, that your dopamine receptors reset after a detox, has a critical evidence gap. Medical News Today stated it plainly. A dopamine detox is not a scientifically researched approach, with evidence of benefits being anecdotal. So why does anyone report feeling better after one? Tonic firing, a slow, steady background hum that sets your motivational baseline. And phasic firing, sharp, rapid bursts that spike when something unexpected and rewarding appears. Think of tonic as the idle engine speed. Phasic is the acceleration. Social media platforms, particularly those using infinite scroll and variable ratio reinforcement, are engineered to produce phasic spikes, not constant reward. Intermittent reward. The same schedule BF. Skinner used to make lab rats press a lever thousands of times without stopping. The rat doesn't know when the pellet comes, so it never stops pressing. Your thumb on TikTok is the lever. The algorithm is the schedule.
Each unpredictable spike of novelty produces a phasic dopamine burst. Over weeks and months, the tonic baseline, the idle engine speed, begins to drop. Your brain adapts. This is hedonic adaptation.
The steady hum of motivation gets quieter, not because dopamine is drained, because the contrast between the hum and the spikes has grown so extreme that ordinary activities, reading, cooking, walking, register as neurochemically flat. The wanting circuit has been recalibrated to ignore low stimulation experiences entirely. What people call dopamine detox is, mechanically, an attempt to reverse this recalibration, remove the spikes, and the tonic baseline should theoretically drift upward again. Receptors should upregulate. Sensitivity should return. Except a comprehensive neuroscience review found something uncomfortable. The specific claim that a dopamine detox resensitizes receptors in healthy humans has never been directly tested. No controlled study has measured receptor density in healthy people before and after a behavioral detox. The receptor story is extrapolated from addiction research, primarily substance addiction, and the neurobiology of behavioral addiction and substance addiction do not map perfectly onto each other. The pathways overlap, but the magnitudes differ, the timelines differ. So what is actually happening when people report improvement? The answer isn't in the dopamine system at all. It's in a region called the anterior cingulate cortex, a curved band of neural tissue wrapping around the front of your brain like a collar. This structure does something no dopamine detox influencer ever mentions. It performs effort-reward calculations. Every time your brain encounters a task that requires sustained attention, reading a chapter, cleaning a room, holding a difficult conversation, the anterior cingulate weighs the expected reward against the expected effort. If the calculation says the effort isn't worth it, you feel resistance, procrastination, that heavy, vague unwillingness to begin. When your brain has spent months receiving high-reward experiences for zero effort, scrolling, swiping, clicking, the anterior cingulate recalibrates its threshold. It now compares every activity against the effortless intensity of algorithmically delivered content. A book can't compete. A walk can't compete. Conversation can't compete. Not because those activities produce less dopamine, but because the effort-reward calculation has been corrupted by months of data points where effort was zero and reward was extreme. The most effective element of dopamine detox is not receptor resetting. It is forced boredom.
When you remove high stimulation inputs for 48 to 72 hours, the anterior cingulate doesn't just idle, it begins recalculating. Low stimulation activities, noticing clouds, feeling the texture of paper, hearing a conversation with no visual stimulation, start registering as comparatively rewarding again. Not because dopamine receptors change density, because the reference point shifted.
A randomized controlled trial found that reducing smartphone screen time improved mental health outcomes over just a 2-week window. Not by detoxing dopamine, by changing the inputs the anterior cingulate used to measure whether effort was worthwhile. The Cleveland Clinic stated flatly, there is no such thing as a true dopamine detox. They're right, and they're wrong. The name is scientifically inaccurate. You cannot detox from a molecule your brain produces continuously, a molecule you need to breathe, to move, to stay alive. But the behavioral protocol of strategic stimulus reduction does something real, measurable, and consequential. It doesn't drain dopamine. It retrains the effort calculator. And this is where the scale becomes unsettling. Every app on your phone is engineered by teams who understand intermittent reinforcement better than most neuroscientists. The variable ratio schedule baked into every notification system, every infinite scroll, every algorithmic feed, that schedule is not accidental. It is the most potent behavioral conditioning pattern ever discovered. And right now, inside your anterior cingulate cortex, the threshold for what counts as worth doing is being quietly rewritten by inputs you never consciously chose. The conditioning isn't coming. It already happened. The question is whether the effort-reward equation in your brain still belongs to you or to the last algorithm that trained it. The recalibration is already running. Every swipe adjusts the threshold. Every hour of boredom resets it. And next, we decode the protocol your nervous system uses to decide whether you're safe, before your conscious mind gets a single vote.